Welcome to the Mike on Mike show. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on Facebook, which you probably are, go up to the Mike on Mike icon and go to that page, like and follow that page. And that helps it to get to more people and for you to be notified when new shows come out. Joining me today, as it is the season for politics once again, is Chad Hansen. And Chad Hansen, you're running for position 2, Josephine County Commissioner. Yep. Why are you doing this?
That's a great question. You know, my friends and family, especially my wife, is like, are you insane? Josephine County, the last few years.
It's been an excrement show.
There's been a lot of upheaval, a lot of change, a lot of unprecedented things. I've lived here my whole life. You know, I've been civically and professionally involved and raised a family here. And two of my 3 children chose to come back with their children and raising my grandkids here, and been involved civically and behind the scenes. And then also with our nonprofit, Homebridging GP Inc., business owner here for 17 years, and then running this nonprofit the last 6-7 years. And just seeing what was going on, and really I don't see how we need some new blood. More people get involved, and it's been tickling at me for a few months, years, but last few months, and I think everybody could say this, you know, there's a lot of people itching going, I should probably get involved. And it's a big decision. It's not glamorous. I mean, I announced yesterday, a little over 24 hours ago, that I was going to I threw my hat in the ring, and, you know, already you get a few naysayers and you're like, really? With untruths or misinformation, and then you kind of go,
Yeah, one of the things that you learn the more out there you are is stop reading the comments.
Totally.
And, you know, there are some people that are just not going to like you.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Yeah. And, you know, there's Josephine County is full of just bright, amazing people. I spend a lot of time in the Illinois Valley, multiple days a week I'm out there, and there's even, you know, Williams and a lot of the rural communities have just these hidden gems, these blue collar geniuses, or even white collar geniuses. There's amazing people in this community that I think if they knew that they could volunteer or their voice mattered, where they had somewhere they could take their experience. I met a guy recently that used to be a city manager for 20 years, was a city manager down in Southern California of a big city. And he was working out at the YMCA, and I met him, and then he goes, well, if you ever need any, I want to talk about anything. I'm like, where are these guys at?
Yes.
You know, how come they're not involved? But yeah, I just want to see if I can help my community and get involved. And I work with all the different departments in some capacity that in county government and city government with our developing and grant programs that we administrate through Homebridging, and grants we've received, but also planning, building codes, housing. And so I have a pretty good idea, you know, at least I have relationships in all those places.
One of the critiques that I have seen is that you're a good old boy,
right?
You know, some of these people, they have access to county goings on and largesse that other people don't. And what's your reaction to that criticism?
That's funny. I talk about to my children quite a bit. I'm like, you know who's upset that they're with the good old boys? The ones that aren't involved. And like conflict of interest. I've heard that multiple times. Oh, you have a lot of conflicts of interest. I go, yeah, that means I'm doing a lot of stuff. Great. I've thought about that. If I'm a commissioner, when I'm voted in and they have, you know, hey, do you have a conflict of interest with this particular situation or relationship? There's a lot of times I'm going to say possibly, because I'm so involved with so many things and know so many people. But the good old boy thing is interesting. It's
meant as a slur.
It is
to suggest that you're inside a club that other people are barred from. And so you're getting millions of dollars flowed to you from government that other people have no access to.
One of the things I've told my kids since they were little, when they're in the home, I was like, hey, be a 5%er. They're like, what's that? I go, hey, 5% of the people, they're the ones that get everything done. And the other 95 are waiting for them to tell them what to do.
Yeah, Elon is kind of charitable when he says that 80% of the people that you have working for you do 20% of the work, and the other 20% do the 80% of the work.
Yeah, and if you're not a part of the things that are moving and shaking, it's real easy to look in and say, "Oh, they must." Man, the sad part about that, Mike, is you're looking at all those organizations or those movements, and you have a negative. You don't even know, and so you just go to the negative.
Right.
When I don't, most people, they're not corrupt. They want to do a good job. They care about their community.
Yes, I think that's true, and nowadays it's so easy when you get in your tribe and you get in your little corner to believe that everybody on the other side is a bad person.
Yeah.
And that isn't necessarily true. There are plenty of good people out there, but these same people that think that way, they don't go 1 millimeter below the surface. You have to hear stuff and then go search it out. And when you do that, you'll learn a whole lot more about almost any given thing.
Well, aren't we all guilty of assumptions or, maybe rumors? Well, a good friend of mine told me that. Well, he might not have told me the whole story,
right,
or has a bias. And so if you go get involved with the person or the initiative, like I announced yesterday, and on Facebook, I just put this thing. I don't really do much social media, but I put a little thing on Facebook announcing that I was running, and I gave everybody my phone number. I said, "Hey, this is my phone number."
Yeah, I thought that was crazy.
Well, call me, because I want to help you. So if you have information and you're not sure and you want to double check it, all you got to do is call me and I'll confirm it. I have nothing to hide.
When I saw that, I went, perfect. I'm going to text the guy, and we had a conversation 2 minutes later.
Yeah. Well, in this season, right, transparency is a big word, especially in Josephine County, but nationally, right? Transparency. Okay, be transparent. So I have nothing, if you have a question about what my dealings or my friendships or what my motivations are or some of the wins and losses we've had, call me, we'll talk about it. And then you can do whatever you want with it, because the truth will work out.
Sure.
And I'm not going to chase lies, because it's a lie.
So just so everybody knows, I know Chad from our kids used to play basketball together back in the early 2000s. I probably haven't seen him in person in 20 years.
Yeah, that's true.
But there is, you used to be heavy into trucking, and you had a quarry and all that kind of stuff. Are you still doing that? Or?
No. Cece, my wife, and I, we were self-employed in the sand and gravel transportation business, and then commercial concrete and logging. My family were bought and sold timber, and were timber logging contractors. My grandfather came here in 1946 after World War II. He was a smoke jumping instructor. He was a paratrooper in World War II, and they recruited him here to start the smoke jumping program, which was in the Illinois Valley.
Wow.
And so that's what brought my family here. And my grandfather stayed and married a gal and stayed in the Illinois Valley, and my mom was born out there. And then my dad imported here from a little poor farm in southwestern Iowa, and wanted to see trees, and had an uncle in Oregon. And long story short, met my mom through, he was hauling logs for a guy at 21 years old, and a mutual coworker introduced him to my mom, and the rest is history. And so my dad wanted to cut trees down, little farm boy from Iowa, and started cutting trees down. And so I was raised in the timber industry and was a part of the big change here, with the environmental movement and the spotted owl and all those scapegoats that they use to really change our community.
Perfectly good industry that could have had Josephine County in a much better financial position.
Yeah, so nearly 40 years ago now, that change started, and then we had this interesting gap filler with Dutch Bros. If you think about it, they brought in a lot of jobs and a lot of family wage jobs and professional jobs. And then we've seen that season end. Yeah. And you go, wow, over the last 40 years, we've seen ups and downs there.
And this goes back to policy. Policy is the thing that you have some control over as a commissioner, as it relates to Josephine County. But you can't really do anything about state policy. And state policy is what has run Dutch Bros out of town. It's why we can't effectively deal with the homeless situation in this county. It's state policy. They saw that one coming. We were going to win the Supreme Court situation. And so they double time offense, put HB 3115 in place, and now we're stuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I can remember years ago, my brother-in-law was on the school, one of the Three River School District board of directors, and he was on there for like 8-9 years. And, you know, as a lay person on the outside, you're like, dude, you should do this and you should do this. He's like, you don't understand. We have no control over most of the things that, you know, policies and the finances and the curriculum and these things that come down from the state. And you start to see that. And then that's what I've seen with the commissioner role. Last year, I got the privilege of being appointed to the budget committee. And, you know, I've just been a citizen here and doing my thing and not really paying attention to local government per se. Always voted and cared about that, but didn't really understand the inner workings. And you get on a budget committee and unfortunately they kind of throw you to the wolves. You feel like you're asked to be a rubber stamper, you know, at the last second you're put. And there was so much disruption last year with the changes last spring. And so anyway, the budget committee, the other gentleman on the budget committee with me, we got kind of thrown this massive book of budget and $182 million and said, approve all these things. And so we started digging into it. And when you start to really see what we actually don't control financially, of the $182 million county budget, 8 to 9 million are general fund, somewhat discretionary. Well, that's only 5%. Yeah. And so you go, so you can stand on the stump and, you know, run for office and say, we're going to do this and this and this. No, you're not.
Yeah, that's right.
So how do we navigate those things and real intelligently navigate those things? And there's amazing people in our community that have ideas and really have the horsepower to influence those things. So I just want to create as much opportunity for the public to be as involved as. I'm not a subject matter expert on these things. There's no way. And that's interesting too, because when you start watching commissioners come and go and change, you start to go, how in the world could you digest all this in a short amount of time? Because it's just, you got every department. And so department heads really matter, right? Directors, who you hire, just like any other employer. There's over 400 employees with the county. And, you know, it's tight budgets and you have unions and you have PERS and you have all these constraints that you don't have any control over. And so how do we kind of change the culture of a can-do community? I work a lot with the city of Grants Pass. I'm on a task force with code and planning, and we've been meeting for months. Every other Thursday, there's a handpicked crew that we applied, and we meet with the city manager, director Bradley Clark and his team in planning, and some industry experts in our community and other people. And you realize we have like very little say. And you think, you know, I'm an American and this is a small town, we can do whatever we want. Yeah. No, you can't. Yeah. So how do we navigate? You know, and I'm open ears. I'm like, hey, I'm calling friends already. Like I have friends that are super involved and invested in the airport. Hey, there's a lot of hub at the airport right now. What are your thoughts? You know, these are people that are vested financially out there. It's not political to them. And okay, the airport's a lot more important than I ever knew. I'm not a pilot. I don't own a plane. I didn't realize how important the airport is to our future and to our current economy. So those types of things have been really fun to learn.
It really stuck with me when I was doing a show with Dale Matthews. This is back in the day when Simon was commissioner, and probably about 10 years ago, we did a show every single day of the week talking about Josephine County politics and the interactions between the staff and the commissioners and other elected officials. And it became very clear to me that every single piece of legislation, every proposal that comes forward, the very first question that I would ask if I were a commissioner is, why are we doing this? Because it all has some sort of an impact on the community financially, you know, policy wise. Where are you going to restrict business more? Are you going to make it easier to get a permit or harder, more expensive? What are you doing? And you should be mindful of that. And this is just my 2 cents on the matter.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm really concerned now, because I don't have that many money problems, but I know that young people coming up in the community and nationwide for that matter are having a really hard time. And they can't even see themselves owning a home.
No.
And some of this has to do with, you know, maybe they're just not as motivated as earlier generations are, but they're also being hammered financially from every angle. I walk every day with a guy who's 84 years old, and He talks to me all the time about how growing up in the 60s, you could buy a house for $30,000 and his payment was taken care of $200 a month, taken care of by 1 week's paycheck. And plus he had enough left over to take his wife out to dinner. Insurance was cheap. Registrations were cheap. Permits were inexpensive. Building materials were inexpensive. Healthcare was certainly more affordable than it is now. But you stack up all these things on top of people, and I would think, and perhaps I'm going on a little too long about this, but whatever you could do as an elected official to lighten the burden on the people in your community is the better.
Well, I can remember you were saying that, and I was thinking back. I can remember being in high school. I went to Hidden Valley High School, and we were in the locker room during football season. And I remember one of my teammates, a kid I went to school with from first grade on, and I still know him. He lives up north now. And I remember him saying how much his dad made an hour over at Spalding, at the mill, at Spalding and Sons. And my dad was self-employed, and so I didn't really understand wages per se because we had employees, and my dad was a contractor and such. And I remember him saying, his dad made I think it was $9.50 an hour. And I think minimum wage at the time was $3 or $3.35. And I'm listening, and I thought, $9.50 an hour, okay. And then as I aged, I remember that conversation, and he was proud of his dad. His dad was a great guy. I used to spend a lot of time at their home, and they had a home on Redwood Avenue, a nice home with a nice lot. They had 2 cars. Mom stayed home. They had all their needs met. They weren't rich. They weren't going to Hawaii.
At $9.50 an hour.
Yep. And all their needs were, they had a nice home, and it was safe and clean, and they were able to go to dinner once in a while, and they cut firewood as a family, and they just had a wholesome, solid life on one income. And that was the majority of families. Right. And so now because of home bridging and what we do with home ownership and all the gifts we've been given in properties and the like, families that buy a house from us, and all of our properties have in some way or another been given to us. And we've built and sold 37 houses now for mostly first-time home buyers, almost all of them. Individuals or young families between Cave Junction and Grants Pass. We've done 9 in Cave Junction, so that'd be another 20.
I think I've seen these ads on Facebook.
Yeah, we don't advertise too much. Partially is because we couldn't keep up with the demand.
Right.
But, it's really even hard for not even young, but families to buy one of our homes, which are typically $70,000 to $80,000 less than the retail market because of the advantages we've been given with properties given to us, and we don't take a profit, and we don't have any administrative overhead. I don't get paid by home bridging. I guarantee you we're one of the few, if any, nonprofits that's actually doing anything with no administrative staff.
So home bridging, what is that? Speak to that.
Oh, so years ago, 7-8 years ago or so, some friends of mine at Edgewater were like, how could we actually make a dent in the housing situation in Grants Pass? And it's it's a 1% problem in the big picture, and obviously families and marriage and foster care were big things we were talking and praying about. And then somebody said, well, what about housing? And like, dude, how in the world could we ever help housing, And so it was percolating amongst friends, my dad got this call from his friend, a family friend on the coast, a logging contractor, Irwin Wright, and his family owned this wore-out old house up off of Burns Avenue. The water was literally running through it. It barely stood, and it was up off of Burns Avenue, right off of Highland. And he called my dad, and he goes, hey, you guys want that house? You guys want to buy that house? And so we're kind of an industrious family, contractors. And so we went up there and looked at it, and we're like, oh, this thing's awful. And we were like, nah. But I called a friend of mine, Matt Heverly, who had been flipping some houses and real industrious guy. And I took him up there and I go, hey, you want this house? He goes, no, but let's home bridge it. Because we had this idea of how do we bridge families or individuals to homes and ownership. And so we kind of had this home bridging kind of thing we were kicking around. He goes, let's make this the first home bridging house. Yeah. So I went and grabbed a bunch of friends of mine and asked them if they would each put $25,000 in a pot so we could buy this house and fix it up. And so we took this house. It's up at everybody should just drive by it and see it. It's amazing. And this family came to mind, Jeff and Megan Moritz. Many of you are going to know them for sure. They had adopted a sibling set out of Glendale, and they had 5 little girls now. And they just couldn't operate on a 2-income home because these girls just need a lot of love, and 5 girls. And so they were on 1 income and they were living in a small little place and they needed something bigger. And so we said, hey, we're going to rally around this family. And so volunteers and contractors, and we fixed this house up into a 2,300 square foot, 4-bedroom, beautiful home, everything new, stripped it to the studs, got the water from running through it, and sold it to them for $180,000.
Wow.
Beautiful. It basically was a brand new house. And that got us really thinking about, so we started targeting and looking for dilapidated drug dens. We bought some properties on M Street that were being squatted in, and the neighbors were like, help us. And the cops were calling going, how do we help you? And because this is, so we started buying some drug houses and some just houses that were in blight. And we started doing that, fixing them up, selling them to families, and at cost, so they could afford it. So we would sell it to them for their budget. So we go, what could they afford? And then we go, okay, we're building to that number, and we wouldn't deviate. We've never had a home bridging house go over budget. We just met it, and somehow God continued to always provide enough money and talent to do that. Well, then when COVID happened, all the house prices got nutty, and interest rates went to 2, and then houses went out of control. We couldn't buy any junker houses in Grants Pass and get our families into them after they're fixed up. So we went to Cave Junction. There was a bunch of lots out there around the golf course that were pretty inexpensive. And so we bought 3 lots for $58,000. And another family that was connected to my parents, they bought some lots next to us because they kind of heard what we were doing. And they said, hey, we're going to donate those to you. So all of a sudden we had 6 lots in Cave Junction. So we built some houses out there and imported some families to Cave Junction from Central Point, Grants Pass, one local family. And so this generosity just started kicking in. And then I was working with, we were doing a house up off of Demick, home bridging house, and put a family that were missionaries down in Mexico in it, and they bought it from us. And I called Chris Woodburn at Evergreen Federal. I said, hey, Chris, you got to see what we're part of here with home bridging, and it's really fun. And he goes, well, let's go for a walk after work. So Chris and I go for a walk, and he goes, you guys got some horsepower. I go, yeah, we're actually doing stuff. And I go, but we don't have any land. We're running out of stuff to do. He goes, I know where there's a piece of land. So Evergreen had taken back a property back in the recession and given it to the local Habitat for Humanity. And they hadn't been able to do anything with it since 2011. And this is like 2021. And so it's just vacant, bare ground out in Redwood, and subdivisions all around it. And we met the next day with the president of the local Habitat. And I said, hey, give us this property. He's like, what? I go, well, you guys aren't doing anything with it. We have the same heart, and we all have the same values here as far as helping these families, and we'll help you develop it. He goes, okay, what's that look like? So we brokered a deal right there with Evergreen and Habitat for Humanity, and we turned it into 22 lots. And we gave them 3. So we developed 3 lots, gave them back, and we kept 19. And people say, oh, that's only 3 lots. Well, those 3 lots cost us $150,000 to develop, so it wasn't like it was free. And so then we built a townhouse community and sold all those townhomes to local individuals and families, and they just started rolling. Well, then a friend of mine from Medford was over here running around with us one day on his day off, and he goes, you guys are actually doing this? Yeah. He goes, well, do you ever ask anybody for money? No, we don't know how to do that. We don't have a Facebook page. We don't have a website. And he goes, hey, I have some friends that own they have their foundation, and they like supporting things like what you're doing. Write them a letter. So my buddy Dave writes this letter of what we're doing. And a couple weeks later, this gentleman from Medford calls me. He goes, hey, I want to see what you guys are doing. I said, well, come get in my truck. Because we drove around, and I took him to Cave Junction. I go, this is actually the kind of the future. Because Mike, as you know, I don't know if you're from the city, even in Grants Pass, it's more expensive than the families can afford to live in Grants Pass.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to live on the outskirts, and so they have to commute.
I live rurally, and I have since I got here, but I remember distinctly that the rental market when I arrived here, for about $400, you could rent a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
And now
that's true.
It's absurd.
Yeah, because CC and I's first apartment was $350 a month. Yeah. We were jazzed to do it. And it was kind of hard. We were making like $10 an hour. So anyway, that got us going in Cave Junction, and we bought this property. This group approached us and said, hey, we'd like to support you guys. What do you need? So I took them out to Cave Junction, and I said, I want this piece of property. And they go, how much? And I go, $300,000. They wrote us a check and just gave it to us.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then we had to go through zoning. It took a year because
see, you are a good old boy. People are lining up to give you money.
Seriously, I know. And there's a few people that don't understand the whole story that say that, and they don't know, Yeah. And then there we had received an ARPA grant, which was some funds from COVID that the city had, and they helped us. We applied, and they awarded us a $400,000 grant for our first subdivision off of George Tweed over there in Estates Lane, and they had another bucket of money that they were like, we don't know what to do with. It's kind of earmarked for nonprofits, and there's no nonprofits in Grants Pass really building houses except us. Well, the city called me and they go, hey, we got this $750,000 ARPA money, and if we don't use it pretty soon, we're going to lose it. And do you have anywhere you could put it? I was like, nope, I don't. We didn't have any land in play or anything in Grants Pass. And one day, this is honest truth, it was so weird. And I'm not like Mr. Super Charismatic. I'm definitely a believer, and obviously. And I was driving down 7th Street, and I crossed over the bridge, and I just said, hey, God, what do we do with this $750,000 opportunity? And he goes, not audibly, but just in my mind, is 3 stoplights. River Valley, Scoville, River Valley, trade. I was like, because I knew River Valley owned that 11-acre property up at the north end of town where the police station was, and it's been for sale forever, and it's just sitting there vacant. And I was like, what? So I call my buddy Dave. I go, check this out, man. He goes, what? Yeah, let's do it. So we went and met with River Valley like the next day, and I go, hey, we'll bring infrastructure to your property through this grant, and it'll open up the urban growth boundary for like 110 properties up there that now have the ability to get water and sewer because of this grant. And we'll provide the water and sewer and the infrastructure to your property in trade for 2 acres. They're like, that's a good deal. I was like, yeah, it's a super good deal. And so I should have done 3, to be honest with you. But we got 2 acres for free, and we got a grant. Well, then we had a piece of property that we worked out with, bought from the Mingerhausen family, sweet family at the end of Fruitdale Drive that we had the opportunity to buy. And the city ended up finding or needing to also use some urban renewal money. And so we got another grant there. So right now, Mike, in Grants Pass, we're in process of building 2 subdivisions that will provide about 43 lots, plus our 35 lots in Cave Junction. So we have about 80 lots in play right now.
Wow.
And all of that has just been like gifts.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So during this process of developing and working with the county and working with the city and all the departments who've been always good to us, I've gotten to kind of see the inner workings and some of the constraints they have and some of the personality conflicts and some of the bad politics from city councils and some of the commissioners. And you just see I'm in the thick of it because I'm working with them. I was like, I want to help somehow. And hey, anybody that knows me, if there's a better candidate, vote for them. But I want to create a culture where people respect each other. You still got to do your job. There's got to be accountability. We have to be fiscally responsible. If we need to lay people off, you have to lay people off. That's life. And if you're a good employee, you probably won't. But, there's unions and all these things that I'm not privy to yet.
Well, my thinking on that, I mean, some people are worried first and foremost about having a friendly work environment for county employees. In my world, it's like, how do I make Josephine County less of a burden on the citizens of the county? That's the number one priority. Mm-hmm. And I understand that navigating that can be a tact issue. Yeah. It can be problematic, but it ought to be done just in the same way that we're going after Somali fraud when it's evident that it's there. If there's money somewhere that is leaking out of government in a place where it shouldn't or doesn't need to, you need to plug it. Yeah. And that's going to piss some people off. I mean, some people are mad. It blows my mind when they have conversations with people who are angry about them going after the fraud situation there in Minnesota. I'm just like, what are you mad about?
Well, everybody in their living room talks about the importance and need for Doge,
right?
Unless it's your uncle.
Right. Yeah.
That loses his job, right?
If your ox is being gored, it's a different thing.
But
yes.
This still needs to be gored.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and I understand that. Yeah. But, when did working for the government become a better job and more desired job than the private sector? Yeah. It was always a place where it's safe. There's needs, obviously, we need those jobs. But, now young people are told by their family or their social circle when they're kids, get a government job.
Right.
Oh, no, we're in trouble. Like, like what's California? Over 50% of the people there.
Well, listen, if government policy operated correctly in the interests of human beings, there would be so much money to make in the private sector, nobody would want to work for the government.
No, totally. So how do we kind of change the trajectory of our community as it creates towards culture? You have obviously this homeless problem that has just been a drag on our city.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate driving downtown, and I mean, I do it obviously, but my wife's family came here last summer. They come to visit from New Jersey, South Philly in New Jersey. And they're like, is this normal? Like they live in urban New Jersey and like, we don't have this problem. And we're like, yeah, well, we can't go downtown. Like they wanted to go shopping and they were nervous. And these aren't wimpy people. There's like, no way, we're not going to spend any time downtown. We'll stay out there at the river and we'll stay on your property and we're not going downtown. And
right.
I thought, oh, how many people are thinking that,
We're being forced to do this and against our will. Mm-hmm. And, there's some people who would, have a problem with me saying that. And there's some people, I like Jordan Peterson's analogy. It's, and Elon Musk also says this, it is suicidal empathy.
Yeah.
Where the thing is that I'm totally fine having empathy for people who are down on their luck, but what has to coexist with that is their desire to come up out of that mm-hmm. and have an existence that's beneficial to them and to others, mm-hmm. Not just feed them while they're doing drugs. And
I was on the phone this morning with a lady that I help work with out in Cave Junction. She's in her mid-60s and she's homeless. She bounces between the inside of her car and the street. And she called me today about a couple hours ago and she goes, "Can you help me?" And I said, "Are you sober?" She says, "Right now I am." And she has a methamphetamine problem and she's brilliant. She's super smart. And she has a daughter in LA that she hasn't seen in 18 years. And there's a lot to the story, no doubt. And I said, "Well, do you want help? Like for real?" Like, because help comes with boundaries and expectations and right. You have to, and she's
and by the way, there is plenty of that type of help in this county. Well, the Gospel Rescue Mission is loaded with empty beds.
Well, that's what I told her. I'll just call her T. She goes by T. I said, "T, you really want help?" "I do. I'm so tired of this life." I said, "Well, I'll take you to the Gospel Rescue Mission." "Is that the only place there is?" "Yeah, there is. That's actually the only place there is with a bed, with food, right?" And she goes,
structure.
Yeah, exactly. She goes, "Well, what would I have to do?" I said, "You can't take your dog." "Well, I can't do it." "Then you're not serious." "I don't know what to tell you."
Yeah.
Right. And she, and I said, "But you know what? I just want to help her, but I can't empathy. I can't just keep giving her, and so, it's like, a lot of people have opinions as it relates to the homeless that have never spent time with them. I've spent time with them, and my wife and I took in teens from 2008 to 2022 that for whatever reasons, their families were struggling in certain areas. And so they come stay with us, and you realize every child, Mike, that came to stay with us in that period of time, which was probably 20-ish or so, every single family had a substance abuse problem.
Right.
You go, okay. So we have a drug problem. In Europe, I've read Michael Schellenberger, San Francisco, when the homeless thing really ramped up in San Francisco and LA like 7-8 years ago. He was on Rogan.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm getting that guy's book. And he goes, in Europe, they call them open drug scenes. They don't call them homeless camps. They call them open drug scenes.
Yes.
That's what they are.
Yeah.
And that's what we have here.
That's right.
I actually have one.
And we're subsidizing that, and we are coddling that, and you get more of what you support.
Well, what you reward, you'll get more of.
Yeah,
totally.
Right. Subsidize it.
Is there some? There's some people that really care and are really trying to help that situation, no doubt. And as a county commissioner, I don't know what the nexus is 100% with the ability to partner with the city and helping in those areas. Obviously, we own properties and we have, we share law enforcement, and but these things are really affecting our city. The affordability to live here, obviously, the lack of jobs that would support a family wage, are hard, and then if you have a state that's working against you with the taxes, like today, they didn't adopt the or the what do you call that?
Yeah,
depreciation bonus schedule.
Right. In other words, I think that the federal government was offering a write-off of sorts.
Yep. The Fed said this is something we want to spur industry and create revenue and spur the economy, and our state said no.
Yeah.
So I just heard today that Ed Deal and some of the people that put together the referendum for the road tax are doing the same thing now with this initiative. So I think the conservatives and the Republican Party is riling up a little bit to push back.
I think the only way that you're really going to fix this is that you got to do it by initiative process, because that's direct from the people. And, it's been tried 100 other ways, and there's a lot of promises there, but it usually doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
And, the people have to take it back if it's going to happen.
A local businessman years ago, 7-8 years ago, I don't want to say his name, but he probably wouldn't care, but he was going through some real struggles. A major employer in our community was going through some real regulatory issues and some political issues. And a friend and I were having a conversation with him, and he just said, guys, look, here's the deal. We have a leadership void everywhere, local, state, nationally. And I thought, it really hit me, because it matters who you vote for. It matters who our leaders are.
That's right.
And I'm as guilty as the next guy. I'm 53 years old. This is the first time I've jumped into potentially any civic, role as elected official. And I thought, you know what? Why not? I have a lot of experience. I love a lot of people here. I don't have all the X's and O's figured out at this point, obviously. But who we put in office, integrity-wise, effort-wise, and the ability to listen and empathize where it's needed, hold the line where it's needed, do the hard things. We're going to have probably make some hard decisions in our community as what's going on with this economy.
Right.
We don't know how it's going to go. We might have to make some cuts.
Yeah.
I don't think the money is going to get better, and we're never going to cut trees.
Like well, you know what? And that was something, and here's a little side thing that I might just edit out. Who knows? 60% plus of the county is owned by the federal government.
Yeah.
There's a lot of damn trees on that.
And they're all dying. And
the thing is that we need cheap 2x4s for young people to build houses they can afford. Why the hell aren't we cutting the hell out of trees here? I was listening to Lars Larson here the other day. He was talking about how it was like 14 billion board feet that are produced that you could sustainably harvest every year in the state of Oregon. I may be wrong on the number, but it's billions of board feet that you could sustainably harvest. And what that means is that you can do it every damn year.
Oh yeah,
and you're actually servicing the forest. This is a good thing for the forest to be thinned in this way.
Sure.
And it would be greatly beneficial in jobs. It would be greatly beneficial in the fact that you could probably buy a 2x4 for $1.50 again, and people could build homes that are a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Well, and then the jobs.
And then they also own 70% of the county, so they could carve off some of these more attractive tracts and add them to the urban growth boundaries, and have these open for development. Why is that not happening?
I hope that I get replaced by somebody way more capable and smarter than me. But I also hope that this encourages my son and my son-in-law who live here and their friends and all the kids that your son's age that raised our kids here and they want to stay. I hope that, me getting in kind of late in the game, I'm 53 years old. It gives them the courage to say, hey, I want to get involved and be a part of the change and make decisions for my family and for the future and for the community. And, one of my goals in life is not to pick on the powder horn. It's just it's an image people can understand. I don't want to be the old dudes. Nothing against those guys that are doing it now, if there are any. But every little town's got a coffee shop full of old guys just complaining.
Right.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be, caught doing that and then going, okay, then what are we going to do about the change? What's the solution?
I'm kind of guilty of that a little bit. I do a lot of griping, complaining on the internet about what's going on. And I would rather be involved in some edifying thing going on.
Yeah, my friends and I have come up with some really good ideas that we think and to affect change in our community and civil service. And, okay, so there's this group out in Cave Junction. Just a bunch of do-gooders, nice people, not affiliated with any religion organization or anything like that. They get together and they clean up the Kirby main line, which is the road to the landfill or the transfer station in Kirby. And it's a disaster zone up there, old pot grows and trash and drugs. And that's a really tough little road. And it's just trash everywhere. Well, they go out there regularly, like every couple months, and they have a big trash day out of their own pocket, their own time, rain or shine. They pick up tons of trash. Well, you know what? They're taking ownership of their little part of the community. And if everybody just stewarded their little piece, well, what could we have? But we need people like that. So, God bless those people that clean up the Kirby main line. We're actually going to join them on March 14th. A bunch of my buddies in Cave
I'd like to get on board with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because, I'm having less and less stuff to do, and I need stuff like that.
Well, when you get out and serve and you rub shoulders with people that, maybe come from completely different backgrounds. They're red, you're blue. But you know what needs to be done? The trash needs to be picked up.
Right. Yes.
And in the process,
and the trash doesn't care who it is.
Yeah. And in the process, you're looking out for one another. You're helping one another. You're laughing.
Right.
You're going, oh my gosh, look at that. And then you go to the grocery store.
That starts to fix the fracture between the sides
because it's service.
Yes.
And it's not about you.
Right.
And so then when you're at the grocery store, you're like, oh hey. Yeah, man, Kirby mainline trash or whatever the service aspect was,
Right.
And I remember my wife and I in the late, after the recession, we went through a tough time financially, and it was hard. I was tied up in my identity. I'd always been a young, butt kicking young guy, got a lot going on, had a bunch of employees, and in my late 30s, it changed. It crashed, and decisions I made, I'm not blaming anybody, and it really affected, I could have went into a place of depression or what, and we didn't, and we just kept going and serving, and we had kids living with us, and that really helped. And later on, a couple of my buddies were like, "Hey, man, how'd you survive that, you and Cece?" And I didn't really have an answer, and I said, "We never quit serving, because then your mind isn't on you." And then, we have a big family, we have resources. We were never going to starve. We weren't going to lose, all our vehicles or anything. But you just keep serving, and then at the end of the day, everything got paid for. We figured it out, and your eyes weren't on yourself. If our community could go, hey, what's the one little thing? Like, we administrate home bridging. We administrate the city and county, they're called weatherization and rehabilitation grants through CDBG. And we administrate those and work with the city and county on those. And we go to all these houses that are mostly seniors aging in place. They own their home, but they can't afford to maintain them, Mike. Their roofs leak, their water's bad, their sewer connections. And so we administrate that for the county and some of the city work. And I've sat in, if it's 100, it's 200 homes in this application and then process over the last 4 years. And every single one of them, their gutters are completely overfilled, falling off their house. And I'll be like, ma'am, does anybody clean these are usually widows, a lot of them. Anybody clean your gutters? What's up with your gutters? No. And I'm like, well, where's your kids? Oh, they live down the street. Their families are broken.
Yeah.
Right? And so, there's little things you could do. Go clean your neighbor's gutter. Right?
Right.
And she'll appreciate you. And you lifted up her day that day. So, Mike, if we could change the culture of our county through the government leadership leading with this attitude, how could it not help? We've had this divisive, demonizing each other, red, blue, whatever you want to call it. And okay, how's that working out for us? Right? Lawsuits and craziness, and some sure, probably valid. Some like, really?
Yeah.
Can we just figure out how to get along and not do that and cost ourselves more money? And some were egregious maybe, and some weren't. And I just was sitting there, with my family, and I was sitting there, and I just went, I'm going to do it. And my wife's like, you're insane. And this is the deal. If you're watching this and my wife, Cece, and you don't like my politics or you don't like what I'm doing, don't approach her. That's what she doesn't want.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be in Fred Meyer and somebody go, oh, your husband's a jerk because of some policy that I support or some decision I had to make. How does that help?
No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, it seems an inevitability.
I know it does. Yeah. I know. And that's part of that's leadership. That's part of the deal.
Yeah.
You know, to whom much is given, much is required. And sometimes hopefully we'll be able to turn their tide. Like, just come talk to me. I'm an open book. Don't drive up to my house. Don't do that. But call me, email me, I'll answer. And I might not have the answer, but I'll walk with you.
Well, and you gave your number in your video here the other day. You want to do it again?
Yeah, 541-660-6895. I've had the same phone number since cell phones came out. I don't have anywhere to hide it. You could Google it online. I'm sure you can find my phone number. And that, my dad was self-employed my whole life. And up until recently, he quit being an employer after, I think he was an employer for 50 years. And he doesn't have employees anymore, and he's retired. And he, for years, he doesn't have caller ID. And so his phone rings no matter what, and he answers it. I was like, Dad, you're seriously answering your phone right now? It was like 7 o'clock and on a Thursday night or something. And he said something I thought that was so like profound. He goes, they value me enough to call me. I'm going to answer the phone. And it's also the key to self-employment. Answer your phone.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So he doesn't look at who's calling him. He doesn't have caller ID. He just answers the phone. And I thought, man, if I could do that, and I can, and I'm doing it. I've had some great phone calls, and I haven't actually had a bad phone call. So anyway, 660-6895, call me.
All right. Well, so anything that you want to mention to tie a bow on this thing here? Or?
Yeah. Pray for our local schools. My wife's a school counselor at a local middle school, county middle school. It's dire. Don't let any of these school officials or the statistics tell you that it's great. It's not. The curriculum is super dumbed down. The behaviors is really atrocious. A lot. Not all of them, obviously. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is going to get me in some trouble. Kids wearing their PJs to school. Like what? There's no pride. There's no expectations. Push them through. It's a giant machine. There's a lot of moving parts, but man, go serve there. Go volunteer. They're dying for help. Everybody that is doing something for children is dying for help, voluntarily. And Joe's Place, the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, wherever, just if you can give a kid a ride, obviously background checks, I get all that stuff, but the heart of just serving. And we've been so sucked in by our phones, social media, dopamine hits that are never existed when we were young.
Yeah, that's right.
And so how do we fight that? And if Josephine County was known as, I think, the least expensive place to build a new home with regulatory stuff, because like one of the common arguments I have with our city and our county, they keep raising fees for permitting and SDCs and these things. I'm like, don't you think if we had more homes, the property taxes, where's the math here?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If you have more homes, that equals more property tax. Why are you hindering that?
Totally. The long-term investment, you waive $10,000 here in 3 years in property taxes.
You're getting it whipped back. Yeah. No problem.
Yeah. So anyway, there's all kinds of, probably pie in the sky ideas, but a lot of times, Mike, we ask those questions and we do not get an answer. I don't think people in some of these municipalities understand where the money's actually going.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is what we've always done.
Listen, I watch this stuff pretty close. I still don't know where it's going.
I know. Right.
So, and I'd like to know, are we, I know that I'm paying too much in taxes, and I know because I look at the breakdown on my property tax bill, I know what I'm paying for education, and there's no kids in my house, there's no kids at my commercial property, but I'm still paying for all of that, and I want to at least get something for that money, but somebody is loading that stuff up into a cannon and firing it off into confetti. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, the product is bad.
It is bad.
So, something has to give here. You would hope that, I don't mind paying taxes to support these things, but I want kids that come out of school that got something on the ball, that haven't just been told what to think, but learned how to think.
Totally.
And
well, that's
have
why I think,
basic understanding of the world.
I mean, I know you've probably talked about this in the past, but I think school choice is so important.
Yeah.
And I know there's J.L. Wilson's a part of a big Carl's son, big lobbying group up in Salem, very powerful lobbying group that's really behind. In the near future, I think on the ballot will be a school choice initiative where I think 13 or 14 states have already adopted school choice, where you choose where your tax money goes. You know, your kid is attached to the dollars,
right?
So you can go to private school. So that would create competition.
Yeah, and you could change this by incentive.
Yeah,
and you could do that if they'd ever. You have to remove the union control out of this circumstance, and some people that work for schools are not going to like that, but. The problem is the teachers' unions ought to be limited to negotiation for contracts. Mm-hmm. And outside of that, they shouldn't have any say. They shouldn't have any say in curriculum. They shouldn't have political organizations that take money that they receive and funnel it into the Democratic Party. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, I have this statement that I made a few years ago as it relates to the family. And, I was in front of a few thousand people, and this kind of just came to my head one day and in that moment. And I said, I don't think we have a housing problem. And I've said this as a city council on the diocese. I've said this at county workshops or whatever. I'm like, we don't have a housing problem. Oh, let's look at me. We have a divorce problem. If we didn't have as much divorce, we wouldn't need twice as many homes. The breakdown of the family in America has been very costly in a lot of ways, and no one, if they just sit back and think about it, is going to argue with that. They've seen the hurt that broken families cause, and there's a lot of factors to that. I get it. I'm not trying to say there's a silver bullet, but we need to take responsibility, for our families and our neighbors and our children and their homes. And, if we focused on each other a little more than ourselves, we could start to slow that down. And, I think that my wife at her school, the teachers there, by and large, I know most of them, they're amazing. And I think that's the way it is with most employees, Mike. I don't think employees wake up in the morning and they go, I want to suck today. I think most people are built to want to produce and provide and make things better than when they left them.
Yeah, because that way, after you do that, you feel better about yourself, and it's beneficial to mankind.
It is. There's this. I think it was C.S. Lewis coined it, the echo of Eden. We're created for chaos to turn to order. We drive by a ransacked property and we go, ugh. Sometimes I just want to stop and just pick up the trash, right? Or because we're just conditioned, we're built that way. It's in our DNA. And I think that, like, as it relates to employees or teachers or county employees or employees at your workplace, and I think this is true. I think most of the time it's not bad people. It's bad processes or bad, I don't think the people of Grants Pass are terrible. We have regulations and things that are happening that have put us in impossible situations. And you can demonize the people, but the systems, we have systemic evil in America. It's like, why do they just keep taking from us and making it harder? To your point earlier with the cost of things, the regulatory. Now they want to make you register your paddleboard.
Yeah, that's absurd.
$80?
That's so stupid.
How about we just keep pounding on the poor?
Right.
Well, then they don't do it. Then they get a fine. Then it snowballs, and then it's $500, and then they're in contempt, and then they got a warrant.
And these are the people that believe that they've cornered the market on compassion.
Right. Like, dude, we need money so bad we're going to tax your paddleboard for $70, $80. Like, nah, something's off.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like at the county, what I'm really hoping is that we can be transparent enough to go, hey, look, we all want to go to Disneyland. I get it. We can't pay the power bill. It's just like your home. We have to run the county like you would your home, right? We have to live within our means, and we kind of have to forecast out there, hey, it looks like tough times might be coming, and we need to stockpile some cash for a bit and prepare for rainy days. And I don't know if people have really done that in the past. Maybe they have, but I'd really like to sit down with There's some people on both sides of this that say we have money, we don't have money in the county, and they argue about it. Well, get them all at the table. Hey, let's all sit down. Do we actually care about our county? Let's prove we have or don't have money. Why would that be a partisan thing?
Yeah.
Why would that be
I don't think it is.
No, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's like, it's black
It's
and
all
white.
numbers.
It's numbers.
Yeah.
Do we have enough money or not? And what's our future look like financially? Okay. Then you just put it on a board. What's our priorities? Well, we're not doing that anymore. Because to me, priorities is you got to have safety, right? We have to have a justice system. We have to have enough DAs to get their job done. We have to have enough enforcement, and we got to have a jail. You have to have a jail.
Right.
Right?
And more importantly, you have to put people in it.
No, exactly. We need to come to the table with our priorities and then trust the process. And then I think then if we have to do better, we'll figure it out. I think we'll do better. I mean, we have some interesting properties in our community. We have, opportunities through small revenue changes. And I have some friends, we've been talking about that, and I'd love to figure out how we could implement them. So I guess all that to say I'm rambling a little bit is I do want an opportunity to be a county commissioner to see if we can help.
In May, you're going to have an opportunity to vote for commissioner for position 2. And that will be Chad Hansen and unknown others. Simon Hare is currently going to be one of the people for that position. And there may be others because March 10th is the cutoff.
Yep.
So there may be others in the queue here. But if you didn't know Chad before, hopefully you know him a little bit better. He's not secretive about what is in his mind. It just came out. I hope you saw it.
Yeah.
And so there you go. Thank you very much, Chad Hansen.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Mike. Have a great day.
Yep.